Hello. Yeah, sorry, due to some network issue, I think it's repeating. May I start, Garima? Okay. Sir, I'll take the privilege to introduce today's session. Dr. Krishna Shankar Kusuma, who's currently works as Associate Professor at AKJMCRC, Jamia Millia Islamia, New Delhi. He teaches mobile storytelling, South Indian cinemas, new media storytelling, AR and VR communication research, traditional media, cinema at AJKR He has 20 years of teaching experience in the field of mass communication and journalism. He was also in charge of assess UGC educational program production, MOOCs and EPG Pathshala Swayam Prabha Channel 5. He completed his master's from University of Hyderabad and earned his doctoral degree from Jamia Millia Islamia before joining Jamia Millia Islamia. He worked with CEDECE Nivas in Bhubaneswar, Orissa. Tezpur Central University. He also taught at College of Applied Sciences, Ministry of Education, Oman, and Distinguished Fellow to research on mobile studies in Nottingham University. I welcome Krishna Kumar Kusuma, sir. Though sir has been very busy with his schedule for visiting, etc., he agreed to chair this session. I welcome you, sir.
Thank you very much, and really excited to see all the dignitaries.
Sir will be chairing today's session. I'll take this privilege to introduce our chief guest for the day, Professor Anand Paliwal, sir. One of the very humble and down-to-earth person that I have ever come across meeting Paliwal, sir. He frequently visits the Central University of Tamil Nadu in various occasions and at an official capacity. Dr. Paliwal, sir, is the Dean and Chairman of Faculty of Law at Mohanlal Sukadia University, Udaipur. He was an LLB gold medalist and LLM first position rank holder and a UGC NET JRF qualified actively engaged in research and published 4 books, guided 12 PhD research scholars, completed ICSSR major project, and also the chief editor of Udaipur Law Journal. Professor Anand Paliwal sir is also the chairman for the University Sports Board, visitor nominee and court member in Central Universities, member of Board of Studies in different state universities, member of Board of Management, and has been the Finance Committee member and the Dean Student Welfare also. He is the recipient of prestigious Bhasham Shah Award, Devang Mehta Business Affair Award, Dainik Bhaskar Award, and has delivered extension lecture in Officer Training Institute for IAS and IPS officers, and in various HRDC programs, and also the Police Training Institute. Sir, I welcome you to the forum, and I request Kusuma sir to take over this session.
Yeah, I think thank you very much, Dr. Shamala, and also once again, please accept my namaskar to everybody for this August occasion. Of course, this is one of the area which we have been doing less research, more the organizations like FICCI or Price Coopers and various private organizations are doing a lot of work in counting the revenues that various OTT platforms are earning and prediction for the next 5 years, what it's going to be, and who's going to be the next big OTT platform. These kind of researches are done. But the today's topic is quite relevant, and as academicians, we have the more sensible responsibility in terms of looking at the socio-cultural and legal implications of the rise of these OTT platforms in the gamut of how these are largely impacting not just only the entertainment industry, but also the consumption and socio-cultural aspects, and also some of the legal regulations and ramifications that are there. I would like to just mention this to understand this OTT. I was going through for the first 2 days some of these legal cases filed against the OTT platforms. Maybe that is one of the best way to. I found that, of course, I've also seen the FICCI's report for the past few years, and also the recent report on the OTT platforms in 2020. So they've used a very interesting terminology that especially FICCI uses online curated content. So, and some of the court cases, they use transactional video on demand, TVOD. And of course, online streaming platforms, digital platforms, these are all there. It's a very interesting to see. Not everybody is making money the way it is perceived, but many platforms still not making their foot into this. But what Netflix says is that Netflix CEO co-founder says that India is a tricky place because there are the number of players in India is quite large. Anything happens in India, it's large, it's huge. So every language, there are a number of OTT platforms. Every again language translate. I mean, they get the content source from Turkey, content source from the Korea, content source from the Hollywood, Hong Kong. So you get to see a variety of content just flooded, into the country. Not only that, the regional content in different languages. That is also, I mean, it's a plethora of content is coming through the OTT. That's why Netflix is feeling that they're yet to make. This is like, for example, 2021 November, what they say is that we got only 8 crores. But the point is that they've invested some 950 crores and they've spent around 1,500 and 1,300 crores, something like that finally. But the point is that where is this all money is going? I mean to say that the point is that the crores of money is actually because there is according to them, they report what they say is that the general price of getting an internet, getting a television through the cable is $3, like around 50 rupees. So a box with a lot of channels. But they are giving it, say, 450 rupees, 500 rupees. Now it's come to another plan to 199. The point I would like to make here in the opening remarks is but there are still the lakhs of people who have registered, become subscribers. Now we moved from audience or viewers to subscribers. We have become a potential subscriber, and in a family, his daughter is having a certain OTT platform subscriber, the other one is having another OTT platform. So it's something like an endless registrations and buying. Maybe it's like Sun Network gives 50 rupees, or AHA TV for a regional network, it gives only 50 rupees. Maybe Alt Balaji gives 100 rupees. So it's a kind of very difficult. If you actually look at the small amounts, it's a huge amount of money, which is one we are losing, as well as a lot of amount is also it's very difficult to even, you need to streamline in one way. The other point is that I've come across variety of case study, variety of cases like Ekta Kapoor versus State of MP, in November 2020. What the court says that these OTT platforms are not regulated by the Central Board of Certification. Neither it doesn't come under Central Cinematography Act. So finally, the court they squashed the thing. But what is interesting that has happened in that case is that this Internet and Mobile Association of India has started giving some code for self-regulation of online curated content providers. So I think even other cases like Ritesh Sidhwani and state of UP, they filed a case about the language that is used, especially in the case of Mirzapur. Of course, there are many examples like that which we come across. When Mirzapur is translated, I mean, it is dubbed in Telugu. I mean, since I come from Andhra, when it's dubbed in Telugu, the language is even horrible, I mean to say that. And like we have a smaller short video applications like ShareChat, which is very, very important in terms of the regional languages are concerned. So that the lot of this foul language, which is actually circulated widely. So there is one is a financial, another one is the language of the content, and of course, in that judgment, what is important that there is an interesting point that the court found, mentioned, is that kids have access to all kinds of media, and so it needs to be regulated from breaching the boundaries, or else it is like the present case amounts to committing of the crime against the society at large. That is one of the things that they found it. And I'll just finish it. I will say the point is there is another case against the Aditya Modi versus Prasar Bharati, live sports. What is going to happen when you actually certain OTT platforms, they buy the sports rights, and again they are the internet, the YouTube or other things, they third-party applications they are circulating. So it's also very, very important to have certain regulations to bring them under the purview of the law. And of course, we have and I've also gone through several cases where I found that what are these cases which are tried under? I mean, the Section 295, Section 504, Section 505. Of course, I'm also not a lawyer, but the point is that I did some course. But the recent, I mean to say, the IT Act, which is IT Act, is one option that many cases are tried. And they have given a very good, interesting judgments. And another one is one is Section 67A, and of course we have the Section, I think, 79 of the Information Technology Act, which also slightly giving more power for the state to work on the OTT content, language, and these kind of things. And this is a good beginning. I mean to say that to see what to censor, what not to censor. Is there a censor what required? What is the financial implications? How it is socially, is there a social accountability for these kind of content? But in all the cases, the OTT platforms claimed only one point. The starting point is Article 91A. That is freedom of expression, and they wanted to express and enjoy the freedom. So that is, I think, with this finally, when one of these cases, the judges also very interestingly place their arguments while closing their judgments. So they says that one of the judgments says the courts Livy in the history of Rome, 10th century BC. No law perfectly suits the convenience of every member of the community. The only consideration is whether upon the whole it be profitable to the greater part. And he also quotes Aristotle, says that he rightly observes, even when laws have been written down, they ought not to remain always unaltered, because time is the best interpreter of every doubtful law, as the Roman thinker Dionysius said. So my closing remarks, I would confine to this, that of course every law, we have traveled from Telegraph Act to now IT Act. So we need the law need to take its newer implications of existing the emerging technologies and their implications, not just only legally, socially, but also culturally, to deal with the certain offenses, certain not only offenses, certain implications that may not be suitable to the healthy society. So I think with this opening remarks, I think we will be inviting the, I think I'll hand over to Shamala to invite the speaker.
Yes, so may I now invite our chief guest, Professor Anand Paliwal, to take over and deliver his talk.
Thank you, Dr. Samla, and all the respected dignitaries who are here on this webinar. A lot has already been told by Dr. Krishna Sankar, and though he is not from law field, but he has quoted a lot of authorities and that are very relevant in this context. I belong to law, and therefore it's very difficult for me to speak on something that relates to media. But however, I am trying to cover some social impacts what these OTT platforms are having on the society, and why there was a need to have some rules and regulations to govern. Means in case of films, already there is a censor board, and after going through the censor, the films get a certificate. But in case of OTT platforms, earlier they were not having any type of rules and regulations prior to these IT rules and regulations, IT rules 2021. So prior to these, what happened that all these OTT platforms, they were self-governed, means self-regulated. They themselves decide what content they have to show and what content they did not show. We all know that during this pandemic, COVID, what happens that a lot of OTT platforms, they keep on rising and rising. This COVID pandemic served a blessing to these OTT platforms. And if I read one data, the data that has been established by the Apple themselves, it indicates that the average user with Touch ID unlock their phone every 11 minutes, 15 seconds. Means if we calculate in that manner, the data which has been proven by the Apple, 7 years of life, a person is now spending on the mobile phone because of these OTT platforms. So these OTT platforms, though, are rising, increasing, and therefore for a caution, because the impact that it was having on the society and what impact it was having on the society, that we required that there should be some rules and regulations to govern. First thing is that, as Dr. Krishna Sankar sir has already said, that the type of language, the abusive language that was being used in some of the OTT programs, and further to say that soft porn. The main concern regarding using this soft porn and vulgar language was just to increase their viewers. For increasing their viewers, the OTT platform were going to any extent. And further, if you want to say that what type of impact these OTT programs are having on the children, we have already seen that when there was one program called Shaktiman, children used to imitate. They just stand on the roof of their homes and they just expect that the Shaktiman will be coming to save them. And when such type of tendency exists, how it is going to affect the human body, human behavior, child psychology, that was also a type of concern. And therefore, Supreme Court, Sumoto, in Prajawala case, expect from the government that what you are doing for these OTT platforms, the government has submitted that yes, we are going to make some rules and regulations for governing these OTT platforms. Further is research was done by Harvard Business Review in 2017. It was the academic literature to argue that these OTT platforms are detracting from face-to-face relationship, reducing investment in meaningful activities, increasing sedentary behavior, and eroding the self-esteem. This is what the survey, a report that was published by the Harvard Business Review in the year 2017, and the impact now we are seeing the same because of the OTT platforms on our society. And further, if I want to say, if I want to quote the number of cases, child pornography cases, this is very important because this was the case, Prajawala, in which the Telangana High Court say and quote about the rules and regulations for the OTT platform, and which was again taken up by the Supreme Court, this Prajawala case also. In this, the phenomena, the rise in the child pornography cases, 25,000 cases of which were reported between September 2019 and January 2020. And the main reason once stated for the rise in these child pornography cases was the OTT platform. Further, it is also going to affect the healthy relationship. Healthy relationship, there is going to exist an empathy gap. The younger generation is going for less interaction. They are also increasingly distracted from the family interaction. And the main reason for the same is again the OTT platforms, the mobiles, the streaming of new web series, the watching of all these. And this is going for a type of distraction from their family interaction and also leading towards the empathy gap. Further, cyberbullying, cyber stalking, these type of activities are again increasing. Again, if I want to talk about the OTT platform, it was there, it required was there that you have to create some fact check mechanism. Means persistent spreading of fake news has compelled many media platforms to create fact check mechanisms. This was again because of the rise in the number of OTT platforms. There was a calling attention motion on the misuse of social media and OTT platforms in the Rajya Sabha, and then the minister conveyed, yes, we are going to make some rules and regulations for governing these OTT platforms so that it can be properly regulated. The ad hoc committee of the Rajya Sabha laid its report on 3rd of February 2020 after studying the alarming issue of pornography on social media and its effect on children and society as a whole, and recommended for enabling identification of the first originator of such contents. Again, if I want to talk in legal perspective, first originator, suppose if the program is being made in India. Earlier what happened that in OTT platform, only the program which have already been made, that was being released. Now they have started making their own contents, they have started making their own programs, and if the first originator is there outside India, means if the first originator is a person who is not residing within the territory of India, then the first person in India who has forwarded that program will be treated as first originator for the legal issues, for treating any of the, for facing any of the legal consequences. So all these compel the government to go and form some rules and regulations so that the OTT platform can be properly governed and regulated. So then comes the Information Technology Intermediary Guidelines and Digital Media Ethics Code Rules 2021. Dr. Krishna Shankar sir has stated that Article 19(1)(a) that has oftenly been used as a type of defense by the OTT platforms, that they have freedom of speech and expression. But I want to emphasize here that this freedom of speech and expression is not absolute. Means even if we go and look for it from a constitutional point of view, the certain restrictions are imposed here, and the same restrictions has been imposed here also. Means when we talk of the code of ethics that has been placed for the OTT platform, they have to be very careful while making any program and the content which is going to affect the sovereignty and integrity of the nation. If that type of content is there, you have to prohibit, you cannot display that content in your OTT programs. And again, the content which is going to threaten, endanger or jeopardizes the security of the state, The same mentioned in the constitution, you have to follow the same here also in your OTT programs. You are prohibited from depicting such content in your further content which is detrimental to the India's friendly relationship with the foreign states, foreign nations. Again, this is prohibited. Means you need not have to be cautious. You are prohibited from using or from depicting such type of content in your program, and content which is likely to incite violence or disturb the maintenance of public order. So the constitutional restrictions which has been placed there under Article 19(2) means freedom of speech and expression is there. You can use the same, but after following the restrictions, after duly honoring the India's constitution also, because we know that in OTT we have access for all the foreign programs also. And further, a caution is also there for all the OTT platforms that a publisher shall also take into consideration India's multiracial and multi-religious context and exercise due caution and discretion when featuring the activities, beliefs, practices or views of any racial or religious groups. So these has now been by IT Rules 2021 been directed to all the OTT platforms to take care of all these things. And further, regarding the content also, they have to be very specific. Means if you are going to show any program, now you have to display U certificate which can be viewed by all. US 7+ means it can be viewed only by the children above 7 years, and below 7 years again they have to mention that the parental guidance is required. UA 13+, again it can be viewed by children of 13 and about 13 years of age, and below 13 again they have to put a note that the parental guidance is required. And again UA 16+ for the same children of 16 and above 16, and finally A. So these two has to be taken care of by the OTT platforms, because such type of legal restrictions now has been imposed. Now they have also to implement an age verification mechanism for accessing the adult content and access control measures such as parental controls. So these legal restrictions by IT Rules has already been placed before the OTT platform. Further, the content which they are going to show in their program, regarding the same also, they have to clearly specify the themes and messages. They have to clearly specify the violence, the nudity, the sex. They have to mention the language, drugs and substance use, and the horror. And it is described in the schedule. Means the schedule which can be revised by the government time to time, and if, some more can be added in that. And if the government feels that it has to be revised, the government can revise. Then again, the government has, earlier there was no redressal mechanism for a complainant who is affected by the OTT programs or by the social media platforms also. So now the 3-tier grievance mechanism, redressal mechanism has also been constituted by these IT Rules. There is a self-regulation, then again there is a self-regulation by the self-regulating bodies. Here a committee has to be constituted, either headed by the retired judge of the Supreme Court, High Court, or an independent eminent from the field of media, broadcasting, entertainment, child rights, human rights. But the total number of members of the committee should not exceed 6, and there should be an oversight mechanism by the central government, which will appoint a grievance redressal officer based in India and ensure that the grievance officer takes a decision within 15 days on every grievance that is received by the grievance redressal officer. And also the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting will establish an interdepartmental committee to hear the grievances and address by self-regulatory bodies, and also oversee adherence to the code of ethics. This is very important. Means the code of ethics has been clearly laid down. It is there. It is for the OTT platform to ensure that they are following the code of ethics in all their programs. And the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting is again there. The interdepartmental committee is there to look after the code of ethics, whether the code of ethics is being properly respected or not, honored or not in their program. So again, one thing more I want to say in this, that there are significant social media intermediary and social media intermediary. Social media intermediary is primarily or solely enables online interaction between two or more users, but significant social intermediary who have the number of registered users as stated by the government, or if it exceeds the same, then in that case they have to take further diligence. Due diligence has to be taken by all the social media intermediaries. They have to inform the users about the rules and regulations, but the significant social intermediaries, they have to take extra care and caution, because they have to appoint one chief compliance officer to ensure the compliance of the IT Act and all the rules. They have also to appoint a nodal contact person for 24/7 coordination with law enforcement agencies. They have to appoint a grievance officer who should reside in India. They have to publish a monthly compliance report, and also they have to ensure that whatever complaints are made, that has been properly addressed. So these type of restriction which now the OTT platforms have to undergo, I think it is going to affect not affect, but it is going to have a positive side on the society, positive side on the viewers. And further, the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting also has the power under this IT rules to block the content. If any content they think that it is harmful for the society, it is not proper for the viewers, now they have a right to straight away block the content in case of emergency. Further, they have to, these OTT platforms, now they have to provide any information which is asked to them by the investigative agency regarding any program. They have to provide the same within a period of 72 or within a time period of 72 hours. They have to provide that information which is sought by the government or by any of the investigative agency. Also, the government has put a restriction on them. For them, it is necessary to place any of the program for a period of 180 days. They have to keep that program safe and intact if the government is going to ask for the same. So I think by all these measures, the government is going to increase the regulation, to increase a type of imposing restriction on these OTT platforms. It is very necessary, because these OTT platforms, though, are serving as a mode of entertainment to the society, but we cannot deny the same that it is also having an effect on the society. It is also having an effect on the children's, on the persons at large. Number of cases has been quoted, and in some of the cases it has been seen that a person are imitating the same what they are seeing in the OTT platform. They're imitating the same in their real life, and it is having a hazardous effect on the society. So by the IT rules 2021, the type of restrictions that are being there on the OTT platforms, I think they too now, like movies and the pictures which have to pass the censor board before being displayed. So these OTT platforms earlier were having the privilege of self-regulation, and they themselves decide the content. But now with these IT rules 2021, they are not the self-determiners. The government is there. If any person is aggrieved, they have a proper mechanism for the complaint. A time period has been fixed within which the complaint has to be solved. A time period has been fixed for them to restore the program. If there any program is there, it can be blocked. Emergency provisions have been there. And further, the constitutional restrictions that has been there on freedom of speech and expression, that has to be followed by the OTT programmers. So I think the social and legal perspective, which I think is necessary for the OTT programs, now after the IT rules will be properly taken care of. This is all what I want to say on this topic. Thanks for providing me an opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Paliwal sir. It was, though it was short, but it was a very brief introduction that how the OTT platforms, like as Shankar sir also already said, and what we have been using, especially the kind of the content and the abusive language of women. So in a time like what happened when the consumers, even the, I mean, sorry, the students in the audience were consuming, they started, our own students who are also present in this session, attending, they started to asking question, is this the culture that, you know, they address it in that way, the language which was being using in it. So that was a question the students were coming and asking us, that why it is such. The depiction of that particular area or that culture was also coming in the mind of the audience. So that is where the entire the requirement of addressing this issue to bring in a legal perspective and a whole for the OTT content as such. I thank you, sir. I thank Ujjwal sir who introduced me to this group. And now I'll take this privilege to introduce one of our media eminent educator, Dr. Professor Niranjan Varali sir. He is currently serving as the Vice Chancellor for North Bangalore University and Kolar. We are really happy to have you here, sir. Again, when I just contacted him, I did not know him personally, though being a media student of Bangalore University, I don't know, I've never met him, but the minute I called him, he was so happy and he agreed to be in this session. So that shows like, how they become role models to us, and we follow them in future. I'll just take a minute to introduce him. Vanali sir is from Sirsi Taluk of Uttar Karnataka district, where most of the intelligent people usually come out. That is what we refer to. He completed his PU at MGM College in Udupi. He came back to Mysore to do his bachelor degree, the master's and PhD from the University of Mysore. Dr. Vanali began his teaching career in SDM Sri Dharmasthala College in Ujre. He served as head of the Department of Journalism for 6 years. Apart from teaching journalism, Dr. Vanali started freelancing in Ujre. In a span of 6 years, he earned a name as a senior freelancer journalist in Karnataka. He was appointed as lecturer in journalism in the University of Mysore in the year 1994. Since then, he served Mysore University in various positions. He was professor and head of the Department of Journalism and Mass Communication and director of online education of University of Mysore till recently. He took over as the vice chancellor of Bangalore North University, Kolar on December 1st, 2021. In last 3 decades, Dr. Niranjan has grown as a multi-talented personality. He has penned 36 books to his credit. He was the director of EMMRC Center and Center for Proficiency Development of the Mysore University. He also served as Registrar of Karnataka State Dr. Gangubai Anagal Music and Performing Arts University, Mysore between 2016-2018. He was appointed as Director Swami Vivekananda Cultural Center, Embassy of India in Tashkent, Tajikistan in August 2018. He served there for 15 months and came back on the call of the university. Professor Niranjan is also a popular speaker and a prolific writer in Kannada. His Freelancia Kategalu and Kadadida Kate on the YouTube channel are unique contribution by media teacher. He received the National Award for his short film Lali Gold by the Department of Panchayat Raj, Government of India in 2016. His first book, Sabisita Ala, won the State Sahitya Academy Award in 1993. He was a professor of communication in Sultanate of Oman for 2 years. Oman Emba Ogatu, a collection. That means Oman is a series of mysteries or a puzzle, a collection of his experience in Oman, won him many laurels. The book was selected for Shumaga Karnataka Sangha Award for the best travelogue in Kannada for the year 2010. And the prestigious Krishnananda Kamath Puraskar in 2010. As a teacher, he was felicitated on the Teachers' Day with a Rotary Amaravani Prashasti by Rotary Club of Mysore Midtown. His latest book, Tashkurat Tajikistan, is a collection of his experience in Tajikistan as a director of Indian Cultural Center in Tajikistan. Sir, it's really an honor to have such a person as a leader for us today. I now request Ujjwal Chaudhary sir to kindly address and honor our eminent media educator of the day.
Thank you, Dr. Shamala. But before that, let's have the short video on our awardee and eminent media educator today. Let's have the short video. The host may play the short video, please. Professor Niranjan sir, it is our immense honor today. In fact, you have given us the opportunity to honor, recognize your stellar contribution to education in general and media education in particular. 75 evenings, 75 stalwarts of media education are being awarded, honored by Global Media Education Council. Just for information of all the people who are here, Professor K.G. Suresh, the Vice Chancellor of Makhanlal Chaturvedi University, is the President. I am the Secretary. We have Vice Presidents from 10 countries, India included 10 countries from around the world. A short video might have been shown at the beginning with everyone who are associated. Dr. Shamala, we are very happy and honored to have you as our working committee member from your part of the country and your institute, Central University there. And you have done a fabulous work in a very short time to put together this panel on OTT to discuss. And Dr. Niranjan, we are really honored to have you together with us. We are coming out with the book titled 75 Jewels of Indian Media Education with these 75 honored professors, including yourself. And we request you to give one contribution of an article there, your life profile in brief, and a picture and a photograph on which Dr. Shamala would interact with you later on. This program, as you all know by now, is a part of 75 series across 75 days from 21st of October till 30th of April 2021-22. And we are bringing in altogether 500 plus speakers, scholars, of which 75 are award winners and 75 are foreign speakers, the speakers from abroad. And the rest are from various parts of the country and from various backgrounds, even corporate speakers and government background speakers also, but associated with media. We are very happy to have you. Apart from this book, 75 Jewels on Media Education, we are coming out with a book on research papers presented in this series, and also a book on contemporary media, reflections on media and communication, which is on the summarized talks of all other speakers. And each day's program is being edited into 1 hour edited version on which a YouTube channel would be launched showing that. And also the link will be shared with more than 700 media institutions and university departments around the world with whom we are connected. I just wanted to tell this, and this certificate signed by all the vice presidents from 10 countries, president and secretary, would reach you, sir, in less than 2 or 3 weeks, with the maximum 2 or 3 weeks, framed and couriered to you. And Dr. Shamala will help us with the address and all other details. We are eagerly waiting to listen to your words. Over to you, sir. Our honored Lifetime Achievement Award winner for today's evening, Dr. Niranjan, please.
Thank you, Professor Ujjwal Chaudhary. Thank you, Dr. Shamala, for giving me such an occasion to talk to you all. And I'm really humbled, actually, by the way you have felicitated me and recognized me. I'm a humble person coming from a remote village in Karnataka. I have served the University of Mysore for the last 30 years. And as already told, just 3 months back, I was appointed as the Vice Chancellor of Bangalore North University. It is near Bangalore. In fact, our headquarters is in Kolar. You are all welcome to our university. We have a journalism department also. And you know, ours is a new university. It takes some more time to come up, I would say. And Bangalore University was trifurcated into Bangalore University, Bangalore North University, and Bangalore City University. So ours is Bangalore North University, settled in Kolar, and we have colleges from Kolar, Chikballapur, Bangalore Urban, and Bangalore Rural. We have about 285 colleges affiliated to Bangalore North University. Ours is the second largest university in Karnataka at present. And I am sure because Belgaum, Rani Chennamma University is being again divided. So in couple of weeks, I can say our university will be the largest university in Karnataka in terms of affiliated colleges and the number of students studying here. Being a teacher in communication and journalism, I say it is my privilege. Professor B.P. Sanjay from Karnataka was Vice Chancellor of Tamil Nadu Central University. We are very proud he is from Karnataka now. He is in Manipal. Except him, I can say from Karnataka and in Karnataka, I am the first professor of journalism to become Vice Chancellor. This, I feel, a rare opportunity and a responsibility shouldered on me by the government, because a new university has to be built brick by brick in the days to come. So a lot of responsibilities are there on me. The government has given us, for your information, the government has given us 172 acres of land. It's a beautiful place in near Shidlaghatta in Kola, in Chikballapur district. And we have to appoint teachers, appoint non-teaching staff, and take this university to the greater heights. That is the challenge. And the government has, not only the government, I can say all the educationists have they are expecting so many things from me. And it is really a challenge for me to live up to the expectations of all these people. I humbly accept that. Then I want to, I am definitely today, I am not going to speak about OTT platform, because there are scholars who will be speaking on that. Dr. Krishna already has spoken, Dr. Anand Paliwal has given us the legal perspectives, and Professor Kavita Karan is here, and they're all going to discuss about the OTT platforms and its implications to the days to come. I would narrate one or two instances as teacher of journalism where I was embarrassed, where I could not believe myself, and so many other things. One or two incidents I would like to narrate to bring to your information, to your knowledge, how the world is changing, how journalism is changing, and what we are going to do about it. After I took over as Vice Chancellor, I was invited for a function in Bangalore. It was in the prestigious hall, and the program was organized by Karnataka Shilpakala Academy, a prestigious academy of Karnataka. Okay, so as Professor of Journalism and Vice Chancellor, I was invited for the program. There were media persons. So I gave away the prizes of the annual prizes of Karnataka Shilpakala Academy. They gave me that opportunity. I spoke on the occasion about the growing architecture in Karnataka and all. So I came down from the stage. I was about to leave. At that point of time, many people having the mics, they came to me and said, "Sir, please give a bite." I was surprised. I said, "Whatever I have to say, I have said on the stage." Then they said, "No, no, no, sir, this is the tradition. The chief guest has to give the bite." Then for 1 or 2 minutes, I spoke the same thing what I spoke on the stage. I was telling them, and within 2 minutes, I finished and I wanted to move. Then those people having the camera in their hand, the so-called television media personnel, they caught hold of me and said, "Sir, you have to give us the money." Openly, they asked me. I said, "I'm a professor in journalism. I know what is good and what is bad in journalism. How can you ask money for the bite you have asked for?" I told them, "I did not ask you to take the bite. You only came and now you are demanding money." But they said, "No, no, sir, this is the tradition, you have to give." They were pestering and I was very sure I am not going to give because that is not a good practice. So, but they were all unhappy about it because I did not pay them. Then I contacted the Media Academy chairman of Karnataka, who happens to be my good friend, and asked, "What is this in Bangalore?" Because that was the first time I attended a public function like this as chief guest in Bangalore. And he said, my friend, the chairman of the Karnataka Media Academy, he said, "Niranjan, be careful from here onwards because you are a public figure and they demand the bites like this and they ask for bites only for money." And who were the people there? The so-called television people. And my friend, Media Academy chairman said, they are not the real television people. They are all the so-called YouTube editors and reporters. They have their own YouTube channels and their own viewers. The government of India recently, just 1 or 2 days back, restricted some of the YouTube's channels, blocked them. So they are owning their own YouTube channels. They are covering the news. They are not paying anything as license or anything, no responsibilities, nobody to check the facts, no license, and they don't have the ethical sense also. So definitely it is misuse of Article 19(1)(a). How we are going to control this type of emerging danger in the name of journalism and in the name of media people? It is one thing that is haunting my mind from that day. And Shamala, how many minutes I have? 2, 3 more minutes?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So after teaching, my friends, you're all media educationists. That's why I would like to open my mind and ask you your guidance or tell me whether I'm right or wrong. After teaching journalism for 33 years, what I'm feeling now is when we were students of journalism, we began with saying journalists, there was a time when people used to say journalists are born and not made. But the media education in the last century has proved that journalists or media persons can be made even in the classrooms. That's why media education has sustained and it has proved, it has come out successfully in the test of the time. Okay, but as a senior teacher of journalism now, I have another 5.5, 6 years to go. I am feeling our media education departments cannot deliver the best of journalists. If students come to us with something in their heart, in their mind to become a journalist, perhaps that should come by their birth, or that should come by their education, their environment, the ability to become a journalist, and that the sensitivity to become the journalist. See, my feeling is, you can explain what is news. You can explain everything about news. But if that student doesn't have the sensitivity to recognize news, all our sayings, they become a waste. They can become journalists leading their life, but the best of journalists, the journalism departments, are not in a position to produce. That's my personal feelings. Whether we journalism teachers have gone wrong, or this is the state of affairs of our field. Maybe it should come by birth, or it should be developed by the persons with the utmost commitment. Such students where we are lately very difficult to get. So as a teacher in journalism, teaching for last 32 years, now I question whether journalists are born or made. And the answer I have got now is yes, journalists are born and journalists are also made in the classrooms. That justifies our media education. But with a pinch of salt, we have to take that the best of journalists we cannot produce unless it comes on their own, in their blood. So I wanted to share these two things with you people. I did not speak about OTT platform, which was the topic of the day. I leave it to the learned people. I once again thank this great organization for honoring me on this day, and I can I remember this day forever. Thank you, Shamala. Thank you all for recognizing me and giving me such an opportunity to speak to you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. It's really a great honor to listen to you. Yes, sir, there are some critical questions like these days what we are facing. And there is always this question, who owns the media, who owns the control? This issue is also definitely there. And by and large, we know how the media conglomerates are working in India and how they are made. It is again that the ethics of journalism where we touch upon regularly to the students who make out. And also this forum, what the Global Media Conclave we have come through is designed in such a way that it caters to the industry need also. That is one of the basic purpose of this forum which has come through. With this, sir, I thank you a lot and hope that we meet frequently. So now we have been introduced to this panel also. Yes, sir. Thanks a lot, sir. Now may I take the privilege to introduce our keynote speaker for the day. Actually, this is like searching Kavita madam. It was like a treasure. It was seeing her profile. I myself is so much motivated. Madam, you please come to India that you are coming to our university and definitely to, Bangalore University. It's just lovely to see a woman like a, journalism professor who has gone to such heights. I'll take the privilege to introduce you. Professor Kavita Karan is a professor in the School of Journalism at Southern Illinois University, Carbondale in US. Dr. Karan is an accomplished teacher, researcher, and administrator, a first class and an award-winning student throughout her career. She worked her way up through the hard work and diligence, and she has received her PhD from the prestigious London School of Economics and Political Science in United Kingdoms. After winning the Nehru Centenary British Fellowship from the Government of India way back in 1989, prior to that, she completed her Master of Philosophy, Master of Communication and Journalism, and the Bachelor degree of Communication and Journalism from Osmania University, Hyderabad, India. Dr. Karan has over 30 years of teaching and research experience in the field of mass communication and journalism. Dr. Karan started her career in 1984 in the Department of Communication and Journalism, Osmania University, where she served for 16 years and was also the head and the chairperson of the Department of Osmania University, Hyderabad. In 2001, Dr. Karan moved to WKW School of Communication and Information at Nanyang Technological University, Singapore, and in 2009, she joined Southern Illinois University, Carbondale in US. Dr. Karan teaches a variety of courses that includes communication research methods, several advertising courses, politics and media, health communication, among many others. Her research interests include public communication, strategic marketing and advertising, Indian Bollywood cinema, new media technologies and development, health communication, and women's studies. Apart from classroom teaching, she has supervised over 45 master theses and PhD dissertations. She is highly praised by her students for her dedication and interest in the students that she teaches and supervises. She has also mentored her junior faculty on their training, research, and publication of their tenure and promotion. Apart from the student that she teaches and supervises, scholars from many countries from Ukraine, Spain, China, and pan world have come to her for research and guidance with her Southern Illinois University. Dr. Karan research has been exemplary. She has extensively presented paper at international conferences across the world as evidence in her CV, where she has presented over 70 conference papers, published 26 papers in reputed academic journals, 30 book chapters, and to date has 5 books to her credit. Some of the most important edited and co-edited books includes Cyber Communities in Rural Asia, a study of 7 Asian countries commercializing women, images of Asian women in media with Catherine Frith, Singapore General Election 2001, a study of the media, politics and public with Eddie Kyo and Lee Shu Hoi. Information Policy in Asia, Development of Indicators, UNESCO Publication, and Bollywood and Globalization, the Global Power of Popular Hindi Cinema with Dr. David Sapkar. She has received the award from Southern Illinois University that honors the faculty for publishing books for 3 consecutive years. Recognition has come in the form of honors award, invitation to write for professional publications, journals, books, and national and international award. Her most recent recognition at the international level was in October 2018 when she was nominated and received the National Mahatma Gandhi Samman Samman Award by a non-resident Society of India as a part of Global Indian Achiever in various fields at the House of Commons in London, United Kingdom. At SIUC, she has received 3 awards felicitating campus author for the 3 books written by her. Her expertise in research work is recognized at the international level as she was invited to be on a selection panel of experts by UNESCO Canada to work on collecting data of worldwide media statistics. She was also invited by UNESCO Bangkok, Thailand to work on reference book on information and policies in Asia, development indicators. Dr. Karan's service to the profession and academia is also combined with the work that she serves in community. She has conducted several programs for industrial professional teachers and students as a part of management development programs. She has reviewed the manuscript of journals and book publication on regular basis. Dr. Karan has been a regular visitor to India and sees an opportunity to come and share her knowledge and expertise with Indian students, scholars, and collaborative work with faculty. With this, madam, is quite collaborative, much more to know. I just request you to take over the forum and deliver the keynote address for today.
Thank you very much. It is indeed my pleasure to be here today, and respected members of the panel. And it's good to see familiar faces and also to see the new young faces. You know, it's always a pleasure to be back. And congratulations, Professor Niranjan. It is indeed a pleasure to see that, you know, the recognition that you have got and the work that you are doing. I'd like to share my screen, Professor Shamla, Dr. Shamla, for my talk. So I'll share screen.
Share the screen, make post.
Okay, ma'am, just give me a second. Thank you. Yes, ma'am, your screen is visible.
Yeah. Okay. Good evening, and it's though late in the evening, it's morning for us, so it's an ideal time to be talking. And it is indeed a pleasure to be speaking to the Indian audiences always. And as Dr. Shamla has already said, I have been very much part of the Indian media education. And of course, over the years that I have left, I have seen a complete change that has taken place in the field of media. So it is important for me to, look at some of the issues and also be participant to the changes that are taking place. Of course, we'll stick to the discussion that is today, the rise of OTT platforms for education and streaming films, a perspective on the new the National Education Policy and the Intermediary Guidelines of Information Technology Act of 21. So this is important, as I said, in terms of I look at the education perspective as well as the film perspective, both areas that have been a part of my work as well as my research. So as an educator, I look at the online education, and then I will also talk about films. So given the rise of OTT platforms, the digitalization, the social media, and the streaming services that have taken over the system today is something that we always need to see. Technology has moved at a very fast pace before we actually realize what it is. So COVID-19 has been a game changer for increased digitalization and streaming services. Online education has taken a different turn. Everybody has changed because of COVID-19. But we have been at the universities in the US, we have started the process of online education way back in 2010 to 12. And I have been teaching online classes from 2012. I'll discuss more about it. It was a great move into using technologies in education, and it has been successful to a large extent. The over the top and the MOOCs, something that changed a lot in terms of how these massive open online courses have taken over. We'll discuss some of this. These free online classes and tuitions, they were reaching everyone. It was a move towards a literate society, or was it otherwise? I'll discuss some of that. The OTT and social media, of course, it's an ongoing debate, whether it is socialization or it is a spread of fake news, intimidation, trolling, violence, and some of the things that Professor Paliwal has also touched upon. That is maybe a duplication of something that I will also discuss. OTT in films. We had the system of cultural hybridization that started a few years back, and what we also studied as part of a research that we did in 2020 was whether it is Western imperialism. What was the rise of the streaming channels like Netflix, Hotstar, and the others versus the Z5, All Balaji, Geo, all which have been part of the Indian streaming processes. How did Netflix take over? What are the associated problems of content, productions, dominance, and the overall impact and the need for preserving the cultures, the need for legislation? And I totally agree with what Dr. Paliwal has said and what Dr. Sukumar has also said in the earlier talks. What are the control measures? The Intermediary Guidelines of Information Technology Act of 2021. It took me quite some time after Dr. Shamla contacted me in order to actually read the intricacies of the act, and I totally agree with a lot of things. As an Indian, yes. According to the recent forecast, the Indian video OTT industry is expected to reach $1.7 billion by 2023, and that is not too far off. And as India is going to be expected to become the 6th largest OTT market by 2024, things have to be put in place. We'll talk about online education and learning. Online education and learning will be the next pedagogy of the future, something that we have to consider given the fact that how society has changed, how the pandemic has changed our lives. Earlier, we thought that yes, when in a few years back, we thought that yes, 1 in 6 students was taking an online class. It was the research that I have done over the years, but now every student has taken an online class. So that also becomes important in terms of how we control the educational sector too. Without a doubt, it is a booming market worldwide, and research statistics are proving it. The recent data finds global e-learning market is going to reach $325 billion by 2025, and this is evident through the compound annual growth rate of 7.5% that shows an increasing demand and interest in online content and digitalization. What is the scope of online education in universities? e-education has become a norm. Universities have taken extensive investment in e-education, and this has also been part of our learning. Rigorous training has helped many of us to develop and teach online. Planned syllabuses, tests, assignments, exams are growing and are in place, and they are working well. I have been trained in technology and the learning management systems, and I find that there has been a good feedback. A lot of research also I have done in finding out, and one of the two studies that I have done was the online education. As universities go online, do students get the right media, right learning experience? And I find that yes, they have. It depends on how we program the content. How do we set up certain ways in which we test? How do we actually see that the students are working? And so many now software is available. We think that there is a cheating process. Now there is a software where we can see our students writing the exams. So a lot of changes have taken place, which makes it effective too. And not distant anymore is another study which I had done, tracking the creative and multimedia strategies in enhancing online education. So given these two factors and the change that has taken place, I find that yes, there has been a possibility of good education that can be directed towards the students. And the student number is also increasing. This is something which I just picked up. Who are the online? They are the traditional students, they are the career change students, and they are also lifelong learners. And these are the kind of people we have seen and experienced in the courses that I have been teaching, and many of us who have been teaching. These are the different types of students who are coming, and we are also functioning in order to relate to them and also give them that education that is necessary. But what has happened? The online teaching programs for education is also happened with the MOOCs that came into focus. Suddenly, there was a splurge in the last decade of these massive open online courses, which are called as MOOCs. They have changed the higher education system, and the overall the perception of that was, okay, so many Harvard, Stanford, all the Princeton, all these people started offering these free online courses. Platforms such as Coursera, edX, Udacity, and many others have saturated the online teaching platforms, and the interactive models such as OpenStreetMap and Wikivoyage. All these came into place in order to sell these. And of course, COVID accelerated the growth. Online courses became a better education to financially poor countries. As an online teacher, I support the system of online education, but I do not teach MOOCs, and I'm not quite agreeable to what these courses do. These institutions, of course, I'm sure many of us are familiar with Coursera. Institutions that are involved with Coursera are chiefly from economically well-established countries, something that I'll also repeat when I'm talking about films. People from across the world started taking these courses. And what happened? The United States evolved as the most popular country. Yes, whatever works, why not? And contributed the courses, instructors, and institutes. There were no degrees that were being offered by these institutions, but they were just presenting courses. Sometimes the content was not quite suitable for people across the world, and there was a possible bias in the educational system. So a lot of research went into this to find out what is going on. The criticism was that the courses are mainly structured for Western students and could even be used for neo-colonialist purposes. Verdevisky also warned that these platforms have become McDonaldization of higher education. In the long term, diversity was essential. And another study proposed the alternative interface. It has to be culturally oriented towards the people, and the educational content should form alternative sources too. Another negative side is the socio-political and commercial elements that could lead to biased education, something, which could be revenue oriented. And another problem was data sharing was also dominant side of the OTT educational platforms, which meant that you were also getting students to come to your universities or take your classes not for free, but to pay large sums of money. This could be revenue generating. So since most of the OTT platforms came from the United States, Van Dijk and Paul worked on European responses to the US-based MOOCs. They analyzed not only the European public universities responding to the OTT platforms, but how do these platforms alter higher education as a component of the public? Remember, what we are looking at is how does it affect not only the students, but the public at large, as students are also part of the entire public. So what was an interesting aspect was that as a result, they emphasized the responsibility of the governments and the administrators not to lose the traditional university system, right? Exactly what we need to think about, right? We have to be focused on what our students need and what is given from across the world. So that is what I thought when I was looking at the National Education Policy. It is a great document that has focused primarily in terms of what should the education system provide for our students. And of course, it will also answer some of the problems that we are facing. And I'm absolutely shocked to hear what Professor Nilanjan had to say about this, the system of the journalist. It is shocking and embarrassing. So the possible solutions is the need and want is to focus on what we need, target education based on the needs. Understanding the culture of a country is of primary importance. Therefore, it is important to maintain that cultural identity of the country. That was what is being, country, that's a spelling error, sorry. The Western and cultural imperialism results in the erosion of cultures and identity. What we need to achieve. There is this results a McDonaldization of societies that has a good example that one has to keep in mind. We cannot follow everything that the West does. Everything has to be indigenous and to the country that we live in. Oops. What's happening? Is there a problem somewhere here?
You have to shift. Yes, madam.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
The national education policy is, I'm sure most of us as educators in the country have also read it. And I was a talk a few months back. I also looked at the national education policy. The digital technologies and online education have been highlighted as essential to education, which is agreeable. And there is a few strategies that can be used given the strengths and weaknesses of online learning, the economic and social benefits of e-learning. And I have suggested a few strategies for India's ambitious plan in the earlier for e-education and higher learning. We have to create the content, the pedagogy of learning objectives and outcomes. And I think it's very important that we also have to include that aspect of ethics. And if we have to train journalists and they're not to be just born, we have to instill those ethical platforms within them. Make it relevant within the social, economic, and cultural context. Revenues are just not enough. They are important, but ethics are also equally important. We do not need to follow the West or the East, understand both the systems as models, but do not ape them. That is what has been the problem at many a time. Capacity building in educational institutes, intellectual and institutional capacities in educational technology, and develop digital centers of learning, and also the ethical centers if it is required at this point, I suppose. The integration of players, all the Ministry of Human Development, NEF, and decision makers at the national and educational technology. Education can and needs to be regulated by universities themselves, and courses can be reviewed by administrative committees. That is an important aspect if we have to make education holistic in terms of how do we manage and what do we want them to learn. So given this fact that, even education is important, this is what I want to emphasize and to give emphasis in not to follow those MOOCs. And even the MOOCs need to be regulated in terms of what are the students actually looking at. So there is the need is to create that indigenous mass online classes, which I think some of the universities and some of the departments are already working on. I think, I'm not too sure, but I think they're already some kind of development that is taking place in some of the universities, which is a great one in terms of certain national level education can be provided for people and for some universities who cannot afford certain lectures or certain classes. They can be tailored to suit each university across the country. So moving on to understand this entertainment and the streaming of films, the streaming revolution, as we have called it. This was actually a research that was done by me and Dr. Schaefer, my colleague for 10 years that we have been working on Bollywood movies. So our paper was Streaming Bollywood, which fits in so well into what we are discussing at this point of time. Global Hybridity and on the 21st Century, it was a paper presented last year at the International Communications Conference of 21. We stated that even before the pandemic, digitalization, corporatization, and streaming services had begun and had bypassed the closures of the cinema in 2000 when the COVID struck. These streaming services attracted millions of these young people that we have been discussing here, the post-millennial viewers steeped in the digital language of world cinema, television, and video games. What was this? The Bollywood in the post-digital era. I've taken some of the information as part of our presentation that we did. Consumers flock to online subscriptions. The Netflix, Hulu, Disney, and CBS all have access. CBS All Access. The rise of Indian streaming services, Hotstar, Netflix. Bollywood producers were adopting global long format serialized television formats for streaming services. Have many of us seen Sacred Games? How many of us have seen Sacred Games? What did we think of that? I'll ask the question later on. So what happened? This was also became part of the post-corporate, post-digital area. Government soft power policies, we have talked about it in terms of increasing our soft power, as Nai has said in his various formats, that yes, it's not the military power, but we wanted to spread our power through the culture. And then there were 12 international treaties that were signed in 2008. These were the various countries, sponsorship of traveling exhibits and streaming shooting clearances. Maybe I can play a very short news clip here.
The Cannes Film Festival is the star attraction for film buffs all over the world. This edition also witnessed efforts by the Indian delegation to project India as a preferred destination for foreign filmmakers. The Indian delegation held a meeting with film commissioners from across the globe. Delegation headed by Amit Khare, the Information and Broadcasting Secretary, sent a message that India is working towards making it easier for foreign film units to shoot in the country, not only by overhauling clearance granting mechanisms, but also by providing incentives like tax refunds and subsidies to international movie projects. The efforts bore fruit as after a meeting with delegation, Israel proposed India to be focus country in Jerusalem Film Festival 2020. The buzz created by Hindi movie Newton in Israel was also highlighted by the Israeli delegation in the talks. Israel also proposed the idea of making concept-based films in India with a focus on regional and small budget films. The Indian Pavilion at Cannes Film Festival 2019 was also inaugurated, and a special IFI poster marking its Golden Jubilee edition was released. A comprehensive film guide to showcase the importance of the film ecosystem and government incentives to shoot in India was also released. Officials also stressed about the growing importance of regional cinema in the country and the increasing role of states in giving incentives to shoot films. India also highlighted the steps taken by government to ease shooting films in India through Film Facilitation Office that facilitates single window clearance for filmmakers. Government is also exploring avenues to further incentivize foreign filmmakers to shoot in India. The Indian delegation interacted with key stakeholders of Cannes as well as other members of the film fraternity. To take advantage of availability of technicians and skilled professionals, the delegation will showcase India as a post-production hub to promote collaborations for films with international production houses. Thursday also saw screening of Indian film Lohardaga at the Cannes Film Festival. Lohardaga is a film based on the circumstances that force a youth to join Naxal ranks. Bureau Report, GD India.
Okay, so that is, a clip in terms of telling how, the movement has taken place. So this is basically, a change that has taken place, and we have also attracted, which is good in a way in which India has tried to, move ahead. And the conversion to digital media initiatives, the DCI technologies in the mid-2000s and the COVID-19. Through the DCI, films could be sent to thousands of exhibitors worldwide, and this maximized the corporate profits and reduced demand for pirated copies. As global streaming pressures increased, Bollywood and Hollywood producers saw content hybridization as a tactic to attract global boundaries. The Mumbai-based Phantom Films. The first time I saw Sacred Games, I was totally shocked, period. And that is what it was, the films, the US-based Netflix to produce the gritty crime series Sacred Games. The hybridized strategy paid off. The drama was a big hit in India and the US, earning a 76% fresh rating on the popular review site RottenTomatoes.com and a 7 Amazon One website idbm.com. Series was subtitled in more than a dozen languages, including Russian, Finnish, Arabic, Hebrew, Spanish, and many others. The popularity of Sacred Games led the North American multinationals exploited digitalization to exert increasing control over the Indian film distribution. The Western dominance in India, Netflix, Amazon Prime, and Hotstar Disney. The top 3 streaming companies in India were all controlled by the US multinational corporations. All of us are familiar. All these 3, Netflix, Amazon Prime, Hotstar, Disney's, were collectively controlling 57% of the domestic streaming market. India's domestic streamers retaining smaller share of the Indian market, with Z5 controlling 9%, Jio at 7%, and Alt Balaji at 4%, among others which may be present. And these increasing Hollywood's presence and control of online film distribution is something, a scenario which we said would not have been, seemed very unlikely a decade ago, which I'm sure all of us would agree that this would not be possible a few years back. And what happened to these Western dominant social and economic platform? We called it as the platform imperialism, which is being done in terms of the research. Expansion of these North American digital platforms like Facebook and YouTube that we have just been listening to, in the name of mergers and acquisitions, many were destroying the local based digital platforms. People enjoy both non-Western and Western cultures, but most of the world's countries adopted the US-based platforms, resulting in the construction of platform imperialism. This is part of a research done by Jin. Similar was the case in India. US streaming companies were exploiting the Western platform imperialisms, and it was working well. And that is what was the cause and the need for legislation too. The system appeared to produce good results with annual box office returns until 2020 shuttered theaters, and there was a lack of revenue. Bollywood producers and stars increasingly turned to streaming to distribute their 2021 releases. Anyone can guess which was the movie? Gulabo Sitabo. The Amazon Prime's acquisition of Bollywood superstar Amitabh Bachchan's comedy Gulabo Sitabo was the first string of straight online releases. Now, most of the movies which could not be released in theaters started being released online, and this was one of the first movie that was released. And what happened? The Indian cinema's reach increased, the global audiences. The Indian film industries has benefited from streaming distribution to a large extent. Netflix homepage now mixes the latest Hollywood titles along with classic and modern Bollywood fare. So you have an array of, if anyone looks at the algorithms, the Netflix also suggests content to the viewer's homepage of their likes for continued viewership. They have the connection that the data can, the algorithms that they have or the formulae that they have, it helps you to see which are the movies that you like. And some of the research that we had done in terms of Netflix, it is amazing to see the kind of, they have so many different people who are working on their algorithms or the formula to tell you which is the movies that you like, which movies, how much time you have spent in watching what kind of movies. That is what has led them to create their own content. Now Netflix creates their own content because they know there is a definite target audience for them. So digital Bollywood has prominently become part of the offerings of the global hybridized cinematic film fare, and this has accelerated in the 21st century that we were gone through. Sacred Games and other Indian productions co-produced by Hollywood streaming companies, they are neither Indian nor American, they are both. So what has happened now? The success and problems of online streaming. The gradual increase was due to the direct result of Indian government's previous soft power efforts to attract foreign direct investment in the media and entertainment sector, and it did work. However, the sudden splurge through the US streaming services with uncensored content, this is the point of discussion, disrupted the fabric of Indian social and a cultural system. The problem of Western domination and Hollywood companies now controlling the distribution of the lion's share of the Indian streaming services, as stated in the Western platforms. That was what we are looking at here, concern. So the question we raised when we were working on this study was, it is possible that a conservative Indian government may legislate new controls on foreign ownership of domestic streaming companies, as the US did with its call for the domestic takeover of the Chinese-owned social media platform TikTok. Working and understanding the changes that were taking place, this was in 2021, and working on from 2020, we raised this question in our research paper. And yes, this is what happened. This is what we saw as we reviewed the IT Act as an important document in providing the necessary soft censorship that is required today. The Information Technology Intermediary Guidelines and Digital Media Ethics Code Rule 2021. So when I was looking at this and the question we raised in our paper, I said, yes, this was required. And this is what the Indian government has actually stated. So what were the OTT platforms, the social and legal perspectives? The intermediary guidelines, I think some of them, which I won't repeat, which Dr. Paliwal has already, Anand Paliwal has already said, right? He read out some of the factors and what was the content that was leading to the problems and why, right? The defamatory is content in the perspective to control. The content is defamatory, obscene, pornographic, pedophilic, invasion of another's privacy, insulting or harassing on the bias of gender, libelous, racially or ethnically objectionable. So all these things. And of course, it threatens the unity, integrity, defense, security, and of India, everything else that has already been read. So it also causes incitement to the commission of any recognizable offense to prevent investigation of any offense or insulting another nation. So this is something that was required based on what is being the content that we are looking at and the exposure of the kids to such content. And this is universally accepted content. And now with the mobile devices, kids have and adults have access to everything. So what do we need to protect? The people as well as the culture. As I said already in terms of education, I again reiterate the same things. What do we need to protect the people? Fake news, sexual and pornographic content, stalking, and of course language, defamation, anti-national activism, social abuse, and of course the impact that it is having in children in particular. India is a social, cultural, and traditional society which is ruled by its ancient civilization. The digital Indian platforms of Indian and Western content may to some extent disrupt the family viewing, which has already been discussed, and I quite agree with that. And there is the excess use of sexual, pornographic, and violent content. As you have already said, this is the talk, because this is what is happening and this needs to be controlled. We have to protect the media industries. The Western dominance of international platforms do directly impact India's indigenous productions and the revenues. If we are looking at that 57%, which is by the international players, it is definitely impacting the indigenous platforms, which will also follow certain rules and ethical patterns, which will be governed by the act that is being discussed now. There is a need for legislation in place. Legislation to monitor the social media, increasing the accountability of social media platforms such as Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, etc. The Code of Ethics prescribed under the intermediary guidelines is an attempt to regulate the classification of films and other entertainment programs, including the web series, on the basis of the nature of content. Regulations in the IT Act is an important document providing the necessary soft censorships. We have looked at soft power, and you also need to look at the soft censorship. It is also that gives you an opportunity for the people to report to the agency, which again has been discussed, and it is there, which everyone can have a look at, is to keep a check and control before it gets out of control. So steps need to be taken in place, which are there. The point of argument is that an attempt to restrict the freedom of press, which has also been touched upon. A tight balance would be needed to address the issues of protecting and safeguarding the rights of victims of social media versus the individual freedom of expression. What is freedom of expression? We all understand the media is an agenda setter. Freedom of expression, when we say media is agenda setter, whatever is done in the media is also what happens in real life too. And by putting it in the media, we are also normalizing certain acts, certain language, certain behaviors. So that is what is required in terms of how we can control. Freedom of expression and freedom of creativity is not an expression for the erosion of certain social cultural norms of the society. Unwritten laws of the society, as we all understand as Indians too, there are certain, and people from any country, there are unwritten laws of the society. There are certain cultural and traditional and religious practices that are the identity of a society, of a nation, that need to be safeguarded and protected at all times. So in conclusion, India has to move with all times. All countries do, and India did too. The rise of the digital platforms. And of course, as I said, COVID spearheaded the digital revolution. The Western platforms in education and entertainment took charge with MOOCs and streaming services. The Netflix, Hotstar, Disney took over the Indian market, with 50% of the markets became household names. This resulted in economic and cultural dominance. And this also disrupted the fabric of Indian audiences and may have led to a certain identity crisis. Laws and ethical standards are required in safeguarding the society. Each country needs to be global, but not at the cost of its local identity. The internet has changed life across the world, and the best way is to keep up with the times, but with caution. Regulations are well through the soft measures, well thought of, and there is a clarity in putting controls wherever required. As India moves to be Atmanirbhar, rules and regulations need to be put in place if India has to move to big self-reliant global power of the future. Thank you very much. I thank all the organizers of this seminar. It is a pleasure to be listening to you, and thank you for this opportunity of listening to all the speakers. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, madam. Very elaborative presentation that you gave us, introducing to the OTT platform. Yes, that the more self-reliant, like global power for Indian future. I mean, that is there. I mean, most of the media now they are running on the self-regulation model. Now, with not taking much time, I request my scholar, Dhananjay, to kindly introduce the corporate speaker, the last speaker for the day, Mr. Bharat Divakar.
Very good evening to all the resource persons and all the eminent personalities for making this webinar OTT norms and regulation a grand success. But it is incomplete until we introduce or we listen to an industry expert. We have Mr. Bharat Divakar, who has been working in the media and entertainment industry. He has been working with a pretty diverse and a very interesting group during his initial days of the career. He was working with Rishabh Shetty Films, now who are making a big name and brand in the Kannada cinema industry. Currently, he is working as a supervising producer in Viacom 18 Productions. But it's a very impressive profile that he has been writing screenplays for more than 500 content and produced more than 1,500 audio video episodes. So without wasting much time, we will hear from Mr. Bharat Divakar on what exactly this OTT norms and regulation means to us in the realistic perspective from the industry personality. Over to you, Mr. Bharat Divakar.
Thank you so much. Thanks for everyone. And it's quite an honor for me to be speaking in such august presence of all the academics. I am not an academic, I am a writer, I'm a producer. I cannot offer you insights. I can share experiences and I can talk to you about the other side of the story, as opposed to what Professor Kavita Karan and the other speakers have elucidated in the last 1.5 hours of this session. Before that, I would like to really thank Dr. Shamla. I had the privilege to be her student when I was an undergrad, doing my undergraduate studies. It's a special kind of honor when your teacher calls you up and invites you to speak at a panel. So thanks, Dr. Shamla, for giving me this opportunity. As I was introduced, I've been writing and producing shows for the Kannada television market and movies and podcasts and a lot of YouTube content for the last 10-12 years. I have experience of writing around 1,500 episodes. At this point, I have produced around 3,000 hours of content. And when I started, OTT was nowhere to be found. There was only traditional media. And as Professor Kavita Karan's research has shown, it is only after 2018 when Sacred Games became one of the biggest properties that Netflix, not just Netflix India, Netflix globally ever launched, and it became its cornerstone of its success in India. And then the pandemic happened. Until then, it was an alternate platform of media that all of us writers and producers were looking to explore. Now it's no longer an alternate. It is a part of the entire fabric of how media industry works. And ever since the OTT platform have taken the center center light, there is this question of how do we regulate this? How do we regulate content? And then there are two sides of the argument, but most of my brethren, the people I work with, are on the other side of the argument, where they say, no, we need to have one space where there should be uncensored content, where we should not talk about, oh, you can't do this, you can't do that kind of a rhetoric. I probably would have agreed with them if this argument was made to be in 2018. I was like, yeah, there's TV, there's cinema theaters, and then there is OTT platform. Let's just keep it that way. But sadly, 4 years later, that's not the case, because we do not view, because we have been stuck in homes for the last 2 years. And what used to be watched on mobile phones in the secrecy of your bedrooms has become a family viewing experience. We sit in the halls with our children and watch it, and then children have the access to the internet. It's on everybody's phones. Even a kid who's going to, in class 3, class 4 has a phone today or an internet device, because they need an access to education. How hard or how difficult is it to get access to Netflix? How hard or how difficult is it to get access to Disney Plus? And then they say, yeah, but the parents have to exercise caution. I agree, the parents do have to exercise caution, but sometimes I find it funny that all the writers and producers act like censorship or regulation is a new thing. But that's not true. Ever since there has been art, there has been regulation. Ever since, art and state have always coexisted from the first day that art was created. Either you were an artist under the state's auspices and you were regulated as the king said, or you were outside and you were an outcast, but you still face the repercussions of it. Now the kings are not there. We have governments, we have governing bodies, and there has to be regulation. Even a behemoth like a Hollywood industry still has to bow down to the regulations. A movie will not come out without a PG-13 certification. A movie will not come out without a certificate to go on screen. Why must a TV show go on screen? Why must Netflix or Amazon Prime or any platform be exempt from that regulation is one of my questions. And second thing, which I resonate with what Professor Kavita Karan said, is that there is such a lack of cultural sensitivity in the way media is produced in India today. I think it's going to be really detrimental. The culture has, because I recently watched the show called Call My Agent on Netflix, which was it was a remake of a French show, which became really popular, and I had watched the French show. And in the cultural context of how Parisians work, in the cultural context of how that writing was done, it fit there. But then if you take it carte blanche and apply to an Indian context, the cultural subtleties affect, the history of how people interact in an Indian context, or caste, religion, so much of it is missing. This is the problem which has been happening with every strata. Like the feminism that you see in India is a white feminism. You do not see the intersectionality of how does urbanity, how does caste, how does religion affect it. And now we are doing the same thing, and we did the same thing in the 90s with the culture. We I grew up on watching Friends. How absurd that a boy who went to a Kannada medium school in Bangalore grew up watching Friends. What does it say about there is a certain cultural bankruptcy that is being slowly built into the Indian media production and consumption as well. And now it's gotten on a bigger scale. It is so easy for us to watch a Disney produced English movie on the day it releases in US than for me to go and watch a Kannada movie or a Tamil movie or a Telugu movie that releases in theaters. And the idea that OTT platform should be outside of regulation does not make any sense for me, because I think there is a certain level of benefit for Indian writers, Indian producers, for the regulations to stay in place, so that I do not mean content as well. The regulation also needs to look at how these shows are produced, who are the producers, where is the revenue going to, like, because it's a lot of money. And if if the platforms are going to benefit from it, I might as well I benefit from it, or the person who works next to me benefit from it. So, and I have been on the other side where I've gone to these big, uh, you know, streaming platform, and we want to pitch to them an idea of like, okay, there was this king, and I want to make a story about them. And they're like, do you have anything in horror? Do you have anything in thriller? We want murder. We want blood. We want stories that, because as a writer and a producer who've been working in television, I understand that what matters at the end of the day is the hook that you put at the end of the episode. It does not matter if 22 minutes of the content is good or not. Is the last 1 minute good? Will they come back to the next episode? Can we pack the episode with enough plot points so that they come back to the next episode? Do they come back to the next season? Do they watch 10 seasons of it? Do I make enough money so that they buy subscriptions for them to finish it? Then can I hook on another show to this show that they've just finished watching? So at the end of the day, the content is no longer about art. It's mass addicting consumption of whatever is being streamed. And most of the times you go on Netflix and you end up not watching anything. That's a very universal experience at that point, because nothing connects to you. Nothing makes sense anymore. So, and I think the key word in the IT Act is the soft censorship. And that is the balance that we all need to strive for. It is going to be a soft balance that is going to take us hard work to get to, I think. But then it also requires everybody, all the stakeholders, to sit down and talk, which I do not see happening in any near future, because it feels like everybody is chasing a lot of different things around the same thing. All they have to do is turn around and look at the same thing. And if that happens, I think we will understand. And media has always been a tool to understand a culture and understand what is the fabric of the society. And the reverse is happening. Our streaming platforms are not reflecting what our life is at this point. And there are some shows that change the perspective. There are some shows that are making progress on that level. But I think there is a lot more way to go. And I think at the end of the day, all the stakeholders do need to come together and work together. Yeah, I think I'll end my short piece on that note. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Bharat. Though it was very short. I mean, actually, we need, half a day session from all of our panelists today, especially for the scholars and students who are working in this area. Actually, like I want to tell this, Bharat, like was a part of a group in the college where I was studied and I worked in the BHS College, Vijaya College, Bangalore. So they had a theatre group called Ranga Saroba. The 10 years that institute invested in that theatre group, and today the result of that is we are having all these students like Bharat and many others being producers, famous actors. I mean, they're spread all over the Kannada industry, and it is quite difficult to get into Kannada industry. But now you can see that from very well-known actor like Pramod Shetty, of then the Rishabh Shetty, who are making films and they are coming out. So that's the instant he is one of the treasure that I had seen him in the plays and actively participate. Though I was not a active play in that theatre group, but we always used to encourage the students to take up that, and that's how he's here today with the content. And thank you, Bharat, for agreeing and coming here. Before me to give the formal listing, I request our session chair, Kusma sir, to kindly give the closing remarks.
Thank you very much. I think really very informative and knowledgeable session. And I'm thankful to Professor as well that I could able to see such vibrant sessions are organized all over the world.
Kusma sir, I think there is one question, I guess, in Q&A. Yeah, it is by Sushma Rao, one of my colleagues. As a writer, I think this question is for Sushma.
I think this question is for me.
Yeah.
As a writer, do you feel the shows anywhere reflect real life in the OTT soaps, or they're just manufacturing stereotypes, particularly gendered ones, for viewers to emulate?
Yeah.
This is a little, okay, there are two things here. There are OTTs and there are soaps. So there are two different genres of media shows inherently. The OTT shows are not producing soaps because soap in itself is a particular genre which I write and produce. But then, do the soaps propagate gender stereotypes? I think genders or any sort of stereotyping is inherently built into the production of media. You break one bias and there's a new bias. That is a constant process. Right now, do the soaps stereotype gender? They do. But then I would also draw attention to some really wonderful work that has been done. How soap operas, the Indian mega serials, as they're called, there's some really interesting academic work that has been done in villages of Rajasthan, Haryana, where research has shown that the viewing of soap opera serials as a family viewing experience every day has increased the percentage of the male members of the family asking for female members' opinion in household, decision making. So, and there has been a fantastic research that has been done in the state of Maharashtra, where they noticed that the number of children that the women were having kept reducing, and there was a correlation between TV viewing and the reduction in childbirth. So it's both ways. I don't think OTT has reached a point, at least in India, where you can form at least from my perspective, a generic impression of what stereotypes it's propagating or not. I think it's a little too soon for it. And she asked, what would you say about the Kannada soap, the ones I write? I think it's the same thing. We are veering more towards stereotyping. It is gendered. You also need to understand that there is a huge bias. Like, if you look at it, all the media producers, the writers are men. I am a man writing about what women go through for us in a serial which is consumed by women. So regardless of how knowledgeable I am, regardless of how well informed I am, it is going to be a skewed, biased opinion, an external view of what womanhood looks like. I or any other man would never be sufficient enough to, tell that tale. So it is, of course, it's a stereotype, which I had hoped would break 5-10 years ago. I thought the Ekta Kapoor K wave would go down and TV would reinvent in the new millennium. Unfortunately, it hasn't happened. So when people ask me what is the long-term future of traditional television in India when it comes to mega serials and its impact, I say I see it dying in 30 years. I want the format to die so that it gives rise to something else? And maybe the answer is OTT platforms, and maybe that is why it's that much more important and prudent that we invest our time and energy into making sure it is the platform for everyone. Yeah, I hope that answered your question.
Right. I think it's time to wind up.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, of course, I mean, what I would like to say, of course, we have very good inputs from Professor Anand Paliwal, because that's a very important topic that need to be probed. The section 79, which is incorporated digital media content in law. And of course, really congratulate Professor Niranjan and his vast experience. And I heard about him when I went to Oman. And of course, Professor Kavita Madam, I'm also an MPhil student in Osmani University, and very closely associated. These days, I'm the most favorite PhD evaluator over every PhD that is produced in Osmania. So I always see when I go there, your name is written, and a lot of good things and inspiration is there about you. And of course, from the Bharat is also gave a very realistic picture about it. Just to add to the question that is produced, asked by our colleague, is that by and large, I mean to say that, of course, this is one at another industry that's I mean to say that maybe making money out of every individual's pockets. That's one thing. Madam, Professor Kavita Karan, I would like to say that I am associated with the MOOCs from the beginning of in India, and I was the one who was done the first PG MOOC. And in my university, I did the two PG UG MOOCs. I've also extensively written, and one course is currently running. Actually, I trained teachers in Indian universities across India, around 25 universities. In the pandemic itself, we are trained in it, actually.
Yes.
So I think in a concluding points, I would like to say that whether we like it or not, the OTT has brought a space that a new creative expression can be brought in. Of course, that need to be suitable to the land of the law. That is also important. But imagine there is a new breed of actors, new stories, something like we don't see a Delhi crimes story coming in. So, of course, like cinema, like any other thing, stereotyping is also there. But a good thought, good stories are also there. So we get new content, new stories, and also it's also important to have a cross-cultural communication. So that's OTT has because when I went to Oman, I've seen that people are watching Jhansi Ki Rani as Malika Jhansi. So we are also watching similarly the dramas from the Turkey and. My young family members watch Korean dramas. That's the order of the day, and internet has given a lot of opportunity to communicate across the cultures, and I'm sure be it education, be it entertainment, India I would like to conclude with the Netflix recent article about the CEO is quite irritated because they're not able to make any profit because and India is a content hungry country, and the number of OTT platforms are coming. I mean to say that like an email you can start, or maybe website, a number of OTT content that is coming up. It's huge. I mean to say that, and so a number of user generated content is even better than the content in the OTT. I think definitely we need some kind of reasonable restrictions to look at it. But of course, the future for many young, bright actors, directors, stories, like of course the number of stories with the topics which are not touched by the mainstream cinema is actually touched by these things, and the interesting, because still emerging interesting players are there, like Disney has become, Hotstar has become Disney, and Woot will be bought, the small fish will be bought with big fish. It's an emerging and interesting collaborations are happening, and good to see you all this evening, and I'm sure we all enjoyed this session, and good to see Professor Kavita.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to be with all of you. Thank you so much. Bye. Thank you, Dr. Shamla.
I think Dr. Shamla is going to say some final words.
She is. I have a class.
I got just
disconnected. Something.
Thank you, Dr. Kusuma.
Yeah,
Next
thank
time
you.
I'm in India, I'll connect with you.
Yeah, we should actually.
I will be coming in summer. I will be there in summer. I mean, that is May, June, July. I'll be in India. So
I'm very happy to meet you, ma'am. I mean, connect with you back, and you need to do some good work. I think you're there, and you have a better access to resources, and of course we can collaboratively work. So
of course, yes, it will be a pleasure. I always encourage that, and always like to work with Indian scholars too.
Right.
And it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. Okay, I have to leave now. Thank you very much. Bye. Thank you.
okay. I think